Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Budget Director Mulvaney. Budget, 3 million wealthy Americans get a $213,000 tax cut. 240 not-so-wealthy Americans get a $210 tax cut. I appreciate all the concern about debt, but the White House budget increases the national debt by $5.5 trillion over the next 10 years. This according to the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Economists, right, left, and center, say that tax cuts don't pay for themselves, and they never have. You want 3% annual growth, so do I. The Congressional Budget Office projects lower than 2% growth each year over the next decade. You want growth in the United States economy, you have to invest in that growth. I think China is serious about their growth, and I don't think that we are. And let me explain. China is America's largest trading partner. Last year, we sold $115 billion to China, and they sold to America $462 billion. Our trade deficit last year with China was $347 billion for stuff, for goods. China wants to overtake the United States as the global economic leader. China just announced a $1 trillion infrastructure investment to open up China to 47 other Asian countries, to sell the stuff they make to 47 new markets much more efficiently. Under your budget, you want $1.4 billion to build a $40 billion wall that we were told that Mexico would pay for. Your budget spends $3 billion a month for a 16-year war in Afghanistan. In response to a $2 trillion need for American roads and bridges with a pathetically weak $200 billion maybe, China is making an aggressive move to challenge the United States global leadership. And the President, in his first budget, does nothing, absolutely nothing, to seriously grow the American economy and to reclaim economic share from China and other countries. Your thoughts on that?
Again, you've given me a bunch to work with. Let me take them in turn, and we can fill in the backfill if you'd like to. You talk about investments in China. Investment is absolutely critical to get economic growth. We all agree on that. I think the difference between you and I and China and myself might be where we think the most effective investments are made. We happen to believe that private capital investment is always more efficient, more effective, and more accountable than government investment. And when you say that we make absolutely no provision for investment in this country, sir, I have to disagree. The whole tax plan that we've come up with is designed to try and drive capital investment. Businesses investing in new technology, investing in people, trying to figure out new markets, that is a much more effective way to get to 3% growth. And I can assure you that we're fairly confident that we can beat the Chinese at that. Regarding the trade deficit, we share your concerns. And I think that's why you've seen a focus on trying to rebalance some of our trade agreements, renegotiate some of our trade agreements. We've made some small progress on that already in the first couple of months. You've seen some small progress, I think, on some agricultural exports to China. You mentioned that China is doing a massive $1 trillion in infrastructure, and we are doing I can't remember what the diminutive was. $200 billion. And what I would point out to you is that we're proposing to figure out a way, and there are ways, to leverage that to at least $1 trillion worth of spending. Let me tell you how that is. Let me give you an example of how that might be. Yeah. You're a governor, and you want to build a road, okay? And the road is going to cost you $100 million. Okay? And you've tried to figure out a way to pay for it, and you just can't. And you can only raise $80 million. What if we kicked in the extra 20? That's a $100 million road that would not have otherwise been built with a $20 million federal investment. That
Let me just reclaim
is a 5-to-1 return on that investment.
Respectfully, just because I have a few minutes. We spent $108 billion rebuilding the roads and bridges of Afghanistan. We spent $78 billion rebuilding the roads and bridges of Iraq, and they were all deficit financed in the traditional way that goes back to Lincoln in how you do it. He called them land improvements. You issue debt over the length of an infrastructure project. Cities, villages, towns, and states do it all the time. And what the infrastructure investment does, sir, it unleashes the resources of the private sector. And you see that from Buffalo, New York, to Boston, Massachusetts,
The gentleman's
and throughout the
time has
nation.
expired.
So I just think that we need a more serious attempt to get away from building walls and build bridges and roads that are in desperate need of repair
The gentleman's
throughout
time
America.
has expired.
I yield back. Thank you.
I don't mean to interrupt.